it's this thing that no one can argue with. It just is power.
Right.
It just is handling and performance capability. So then it's the application.
Yes.
Then it's how we use it. Then it's what do we do with the energy?
You're listening to DriveSport, the amateur track driver podcast. Here's your host, DMC.
Hello and welcome to DriveSport. My name is Dave, and for this show I like to go by DMC. And like you, I'm an enthusiast, and I'm a track instructor in Utah. And this show is about helping you get on track, have fun, stay safe, and get your car home in one piece. And my guest today is a really special individual, someone that we go way back. We go a couple of decades back when we were working together at different companies doing business stuff, and then our paths diverged, and then they came back together, meeting each other at the track again. So, Jonathan, thanks so much for being here.
Happy to join you.
And this is Jonathan Law. Give us a little bit of so you've been a very, very successful entrepreneur, and you've also had an amazingly successful career in track instruction and motorsports in general. Can you give us just a little bit of background about how you got into this and what you do in motorsports?
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun. We met, more than 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
Dave was actually a business coach and coached us and really helped a lot in the early days when I was just trying to figure out how to do business. And now, all these years later, grateful for what I learned.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
When I was a little kid, I remember motorcycles just being like the coolest things ever. Loved cars too, but grew up in a very poor everything. And so a motorcycle was the thing that was most accessible. You know, I would buy a dirt bike from a garage sale and then fix it up, sell it. And actually owned about 86 motorcycles between the time I was 12 and about 20 years old.
Wow.
So just flipped them, and that was how I got to work my way into the sport. Just going back to the early days of everything, that was always my hobby. I remember walking down the street in junior high, and 2 guys came around the corner on bullet bikes and, pulled up into wheelies at the same time and wheelied past me, and I was hooked. I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
That feels like a Napoleon Dynamite.
I just want to be those guys.
Sweet, right?
Yeah. Oh, it was incredible. So this is back in the, late 90s, and things weren't fantastic, but we had a lot of fun on them.
And in motorcycles, you won a lot of races and did a fantastic job with that.
Yeah, we ended up having a stunt team. We toured and did shows.
Wow.
Got into road racing, won championships in lots of different categories, 600s, 1,000 cc's, superbike, endurance, supermoto. I actually started the supermoto program at the racetrack in 2006. Yeah, lots of different stuff.
Yeah. And when did it start to diverge into cars?
Yeah. So motorcycles are interesting because everything that cars are about, motorcycles are about as well. But you can afford things in ways that you never could, and that's where my kind of career started. For $10,000, you can buy a bike that can do, as much as $100,000 car. And for $25,000, it would take at least $500,000 to get that similar 0 to 60, the performance, the kind of lap times. So for me, it was just an affordable way to get there. I was able to learn a lot of, obviously, the important fundamentals. Everything's about weight transfer, smoothness. In cars, you can kind of make mistakes and you're fine. There's airbags, there's roll cages, there's strap, like 6-point harnesses, things like that. On a motorcycle, the margins for error much higher. And so it's been nice to make the transition to cars because I can hang it out there a little bit more. I can walk the line a little bit more, and so it was a really fun transition.
Interesting. It probably feels like the training wheels are back on when you're in the car, right?
In a weird way, yeah. And now we've been providing track day experiences for a lot of people. We've been running the schools this whole time. We've done events for Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren, Lotus, Bentley, all the BMW, Ducati, all these different major manufacturers. And as a result, we've been able to play with, these vehicles that are up and over $1 million. At this level, we're starting to get into the performance envelopes that exceed most motorcycles. So it's a full circle of life.
And when you say you're providing the training for BMW, Ferrari, all those places, does that mean that they're contracting with you for their events?
Yeah.
What is that relationship
It can
like?
certainly be that. We've
Okay.
done many different events, many different ways. We've had thousands of students at this point. But if a manufacturer is trying to push a particular market, they'll partner with a dealership. There's usually funds that they'll share, cars they'll provide. And, my job is often to give people hot laps and to basically be an ambassador for the brand. And so a lot of our events kind of come that way through a local vendor and the manufacturer.
So what you just said gives me a first question that I want to ask you, which is when you say you're an ambassador for the brand, I think that a lot of coaches don't understand that. And I've had experiences with certain manufacturers where I'll be with one coach and I leave it feeling fantastic. I feel like Superman, right? Because I learned something new and I was going so fast. And then I've had other experiences with a coach where I felt terrible. And I feel like I don't want to be a part of that brand. But it happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my first question is, how do you make sure that a person is having a positive experience? Perhaps if they're on the track for the first time, what are you aware of? What are you looking for?
So one of the things that I realized, and this came from business, I've traveled the world teaching highly technical things in a different field. And becoming an international trainer, you learn that it doesn't matter how good you are at something. The skill set of teaching is its own vertical. So you can be a fast driver and you can be a terrible teacher. And that they're not the same. And so it's really important that you have the skill sets to meet someone where they're at. You're guiding the student to the experience that you know that they can have, but you're meeting them where they're coming from and in the places. Really, the challenge is how do you take something that is ultimately highly complex, very nuanced, lots of subtleties, and you're creating a pathway for them to build that understanding. You want them to gain the knowledge cerebrally, right? They have to understand it mentally, but then you also have to give them the experience somatically, like through the body. They need to understand what it feels like. And the other really big thing that gets ignored is the emotion aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because emotions play such a big part in how we function. And so I hear these interesting little nuggets come from online or from other race schools, and I disagree with them.
Can you give me one example?
Yeah. One of them is break when you're scared. I
Wow.
hate that concept.
I haven't heard that, but that sounds terrible.
It weirdly comes up a lot. Break while you're scared means that, you're supposed to rely on your instinct, that when there's fear, that's when you should engage. And I don't want to ride at 100%, drive at 100%. I like to be around that 80, 85% so that I've got some extra in the tank for emergencies, for lap traffic, for changing conditions, for tires going off. Like, it's such a dynamic thing that if we're running at 100%, there's no buffer. There's no emergency to dip into, right? Emergency envelope.
So we're talking to people who this is new to them. How do they know that they're at 85% versus 100% when you don't have experience? Where should I be thinking to make sure that I'm putting myself in that place where I've got some margin?
Absolutely. So there's two schools of thought here, and I subscribe to both. One of them is that you're incremental, right? Like in the motorcycle world, the emergencies are large, right? When something goes wrong, it's a bang and lots of little pieces. And physically, those are hard to come back from. So we like to iterate, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. And we just keep pushing the line because we don't want to go way over it. That's where bad things happen. The second perspective is, how do you find the line if you're not crossing it, right? And so then the idea is, let's find ways and places where we can play with the edge, where we can break traction, where we can initiate slides, where we can go beyond what the vehicle wants to be doing. And that allows us to be very clear on where that line is. In cars, we can get away with that in certain circumstances.
Like if the track is open and there aren't cars around you, low traffic, is that what you're thinking, or other circumstances?
Well, it absolutely depends on lots of conditions. Let's just use a GT car as an example. If we're doing 120 miles an hour through a left sweeper, right, probably not the best time to play with loss of traction or backing the rear end around, that kind of thing. But if we're in a parking lot, that we've got permission to practice these different techniques, then we have a lot of safety that we can play with. And to even bring it down closer to home, you can practice this kind of stuff in go-karts, right? You can practice this at the local neighborhood, whatever, and also dirt. A lot of the best, let's say, road racers, the motorcyclists, whatever, they'll go play with, vehicles in the dirt. A lot of guys are actually getting pretty good at razors and Can-Ams and these UTVs.
Oh.
And they're drifting and they're sliding and they're getting very comfortable with movement. And so if you take a guy that has only known traction through asphalt or concrete and you put him into a car and there's movement, that can be very unsettling. You take a guy who's got a lot of off-road experience and you give him traction, and now when things get loose, he's comfortable. So there's some really cool cross-training there.
So you mentioned earlier the physical part of it and having that awareness. And one of the turning points for me was when I started to cultivate awareness of that loss of traction, right? Before, it's all just kind of point and shoot and push the throttle and push the brake, right? So what would you suggest to someone so that they can start to be aware whether or not they're losing traction?
Yeah. We actually cover a lot of this in the schools, right? And when we're coaching, you want to find a way to practice the drills that allow you to be in a safe way while experiencing when those things come off. So you want to be able to appreciate understeer, where if you don't make the turn, you're still okay. Right? Or oversteer, where if you spin the vehicle, you're not going to slide into an Armco barrier or, into another vehicle. So finding the appropriate safe places to practice these skill sets are really important.
Is autocross one of those places that you're talking about?
Absolutely. Yep. Autocross, drifting, there's drifting academies in schools. Those are really fun. The dirt is honestly a really beautiful place to go if you've got that open to you. I think people inherently know this. Like subconsciously, they know that these skills are important and that they're a lot of fun. So a lot of people will find empty parking lots on snow days, and they'll go out and they'll drift their car or their truck, and they'll play around with it. I think those are beautiful places to build.
They're all there, even snow schools.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's
Absolutely.
something I'm probably going to do next year is the Bridgestone one in Colorado. Okay, so before we started and we were, catching up again, and you started to talk about something really interesting that I want to dive into, which is the philosophical side of this sport, the mindset and how you're connecting these bigger concepts that apply to your entire life to a very concrete thing of driving on the track. Share just a little bit of your philosophy about that.
Sure. As I have worked my way through business and career, as I've, raced and then taught and then, attended other people's things, there are certain concepts that tend to come from life experience. And I was married for 13 years. And when I went through the divorce, I realized that I could have been some of the problem. And that got me into psychology. And I actually put a lot of time into learning different therapy techniques and really getting into why humans work the way that they do. A lot of work around PTSD and emotions and the subconscious, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, and why we do what we do, and especially at high levels of performance. So I had a really amazing coach when I was racing. We won lots of different championships and land speed record, and along the way, I realized the way that we are. The military talks about when the stress is high, when things happen to us, or when we're caught by surprise, or we basically default to our lowest level.
Yes.
Right. We default to our training. not necessarily where we wish we were, but where we can.
What we've done over and over.
We're just trying to survive at that point is really what it comes down to. That's how I got into this. And I started to notice that there are touch points that are similar in psychology, in spirituality, in auto racing. So there's something really interesting in this world that we play in, right? It attracts a lot of entrepreneurs. And when you think about an entrepreneur, it's somebody who is willing to take large risk for large reward.
Yes.
And that mentality really lends itself to motorsports. So if you think about this concept of someone who wants to see what they're capable of, wants to push their limits, wants to get better and better consistently, and is willing to pay high prices for high outcomes and really appreciates an experience, there are a few things that can touch on that like motorsports do. So now you take this man or woman who appreciates all of those things, and you think about what they are about. They are about creation. They are this fountain of energy. They have a vision. They have an idea. They have this thing that they want to bring into existence, and they are the power source. Right?
For the business.
For the business, for their family, for themselves, right? These are all really important pieces. And that power source is what keeps them going when things get hard. Right? That power source is what keeps them locked on their vision and what they're trying to accomplish.
Yes.
So if you think about it from almost from like an energetic standpoint, a car is very similar, a supercar. You've got this thing that has amazing capacity, right? It's capable of incredible stuff. It has this huge power source, whether it's a BMW that's 500 horse or it's a Porsche at 700 or, a Ferrari at 1,000. It's this thing that no one can argue with. Like it just is power.
Right.
It just is handling and performance capability. Yeah.
So, but then what's the issue with that, right?
Yeah. So then it's the application.
Yes.
Then it's how we use it. Then it's what do we do with the energy? So if we're talking people, it's where do they spend their energy? Where do they put that effort to get the biggest bang for the buck? Where do they put the energy that they've got to spend so that they can guide and morph and create this thing that they're trying to make happen, right? In a car, we're doing the same thing. Where do we want to put the weight? Where do we put the energy? Where do we pull energy out of, i.e. braking or, how we're cornering and loading suspension? And where do we place that energy, right? Which side of the car are we trying to move towards? There's so many really interesting connection points between how vehicles work and how like consciousness works. So another example, when we are decelerating, when we slow down, a vehicle will turn better, right?
Yeah.
Well, that works for humans too. When we slow down and take time, when we're thoughtful, we're able to pivot and go in new directions. And it's easier than when we've got everything full steam ahead. So there's just like point after point like this where we are energetically very similar to what we're doing on track.
Yeah, that's so cool. So I'm going to riff on it for just a couple of things
Absolutely.
here. One is I have actually thought about incorporating what I've been doing as a track instructor, and I have much less experience than you do, but I take it very seriously. You know how much I care about the art of coaching.
Yeah.
And I've thought about how I can apply those lessons as trying to coach someone going 100 miles an hour down the straight in right seat, in what I do coaching an entrepreneur on the phone call while we're trying to get results with it. And I think there are so many applicable lessons for it. The other thing, though, is what you're talking about is vision, a big picture about the goal that you want, right? So the entrepreneur has a vision. That's why they take the risk, because they can see this vision, this future where everything works out. We also need to have that when we go on the track, right? And I think everyone listening to this has that. They have this picture of themselves in their head of this is who I'm going to be when I'm on the track. This is what I'm going to do. You also, though, have to learn the skills in order to create that vision and make that come to pass. And that's one of the things I love about it personally. I think many entrepreneurs can relate to it, is it's immediate feedback. You mess up and you know you messed up because the car just told you or whatever it is, or your instructor just told you. So that's brilliant stuff.
I'll give you like a few more little just connection points,
Yeah,
right?
please.
When we get everything in place and then we add capital or we add resources to what we're building, that's very much the same as going to the throttle on an exit of a turn, right? The vehicle is going to become more stable. It's going to carry a wider arc. It's harder to adjust trajectory as we add in the energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Very similar. Another one would be that we go where we look, that where we put attention is where we're going to end up. So like when you're on the racetrack, if you're just bumper to bumper with somebody else and they go to the brakes, if I'm looking at the car, I'm going to hit him. If I'm looking to the side of him, I'm going to go where I'm looking. So much of this just has these correlations that are true.
Yeah, if you're over focused on the problem rather than the big picture, all you're going to get is more problems and more trouble.
Well, and one of the things you taught me when you were coaching me in business 20 years ago was this concept of sharpening the saw, right? And if we don't do the maintenance on our vehicle, it's not going to be there to perform the way we want it to when we need it to.
Or ourselves.
Exactly.
One of the things that I've changed about myself as I've become very serious about this, serious about having fun, my exercise routines changed because I would finish a day and my neck was killing me, or I'd start to feel, this problem up at my shoulders. So I started to add, rotational exercises. I started to add neck exercises. So the goal makes you change your habits in order to achieve more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm really appreciating this concept because we try and learn all of these different things. And when we understand the correlations, there's an economy of motion. There's an ease of energy. If I get how business works and I can make the connections, I can be a great car racer pretty quickly, right? If I understand how a car does what it does and I can make the connection, all that expertise is now usable somewhere else. So that's where I get a kick out of just the similarities.
Yeah. And you're getting to an area that I like to ask great instructors about, because you all have a different perspective, which is what makes a great student? When you get in the car, how do you know that you're going to work with someone who's making a lot of progress? And I'm asking that so that someone listening to this can have that mindset and put themselves up in a position for success when they're working with a coach like you.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is interesting. I think one of the things that hurts men the most is ego. We all have it. It's an important piece. It protects us, right? It is the element that defends our value and our worth. And so it is a very useful tool in those cases. In a lot of cases, it becomes our biggest adversary. It slows us down. It creates resistance. It makes it hard to have relationships, but it also makes it very difficult to learn. So 9 out of 10 times, I'll have a female come to a class and she will learn quicker, get better, be faster, be smoother right out the gate because she's there to learn, not to maintain her ego. So if guys can just let that go, if they can acknowledge that like, hey, I may be amazing at all of these other things in my life, but I'm trying to learn a new skill, I'm going to be open to the expertise of others. That attitude alone, it speeds everything up, right? That's super helpful.
Yeah. And you have to be humble because there's so much to learn here. It's so deep. And even Max Verstappen, even, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, they have coaches.
Absolutely.
So how can we think that because I've been out on the track 2 times or I've been to a Porsche track experience, now I know everything? And you know what? Let me ask you this. When you do work with someone where that ego is getting in the way, what do you do as a coach to get back some respect at the same time not offending them and making them feel bad?
Well, so I got to take my own medicine, right? Like it was very obvious to me that if I'm going to help people learn, I need to not have ego in it either. And so it's really important that like I'm not there to prove what I'm capable of. I'm there to help you. And so I really try and meet people where they're at. And people do this for different reasons, right? Some of them do it to relax. Well, I'll relax with you. I'll help you have a peaceful, wonderful, unwinding kind of experience. Some people are doing it for the ego. They want to be racers. They want to, maybe they're not feeling the fulfillment at work or at home, and they want to just go see what are they capable of. Back in the day, we used to joust. We used to, have sword play. We would have these things where we would test ourselves. And this is kind of the modern equivalent, right? How good can I get? How many of my fellow men can I beat and feel better about myself, right?
That's really interesting.
And so for those guys, like I'll absolutely support them in that. No problem.
Well, and that highlights something. I'm always looking for application. What can someone listening to this do?
Sure.
And I think one of those things is decide what your goal is.
Yeah.
When you go in there, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Is it to have a great, fun experience? Is it to get faster? And I think the more clear you can be when you get to the track and work with an instructor, and then you can say, this is what I'm trying to do. Hopefully the instructor asks you that,
right?
But sometimes they miss it. And so if they do, just say, hey, just to let you know, I'm here because I don't want to be the limit. Right? That's my thing. The turning point for me was when someone said, the limit isn't the car, it's you. And I was like, well, how do I stop being the limit? So that was it for me, is I want to keep improving my skills. But maybe for someone else, it's a different thing. If you can know that going in, you're probably going to have a better experience at the track.
Absolutely. So couple of things. Number one, safety has to be their absolute goal.
Yeah.
So if you're ever with someone whose safety isn't number one, like get out of there, because they're not concerned enough for you. That should be goal one. Number two, find somebody that you jive with. Because I think we were talking about this earlier. Just because someone can drive fast does not make them a good teacher at all. It's a very different skill set. And to be a good coach, they need to be able to see where you're at. They need to be able to pick apart the little subtleties of the performance and how things are going. And then they need to be able to speak that back in a way that you're going to understand. And not just the words, but also give you the experience. So you mentioned, like, what do I do when somebody's just being cocky? I let them. And I'm just there for them. Like that's my job, is to help them get where they're going. Back to another thing, just being better humans, right? That for me, that's a big goal. And I think motorsports makes me a better human. Everything that we do in motorsports needs to be smooth, right? We don't want to be abrupt. Yeah. Abrupt is where we cause chaos. And I think the same is true in life. So I put a lot of effort into not being abrupt in my relationships.
Interesting.
In the ways that I communicate. I try not to crash my cup of coffee, right? So I'm very I'm mental about how and what I do things. They say how you do anything's how you do everything. And I absolutely agree. So I have become graceful in life because I'm graceful behind a wheel.
That's fantastic stuff. And I do feel that as I'm listening to you, it makes me think about how is that rubbed off on me? And I've seen that, especially that tendency that people want to do when something goes wrong, to just overreact and change everything and fix everything. But you can't do that on the track. If something goes wrong, you have to just adjust and get yourself back in a safe position and be really cautious and make sure everything's okay, and then restart, rather than just like, I gotta, start throwing the wheel all over the place or whatever it is.
Well, this is really fun for me. Just the world coming full circle.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm thinking back to when you were coaching me in business, and one of the things that you had taught me in business was how important it is to not try and do everything at once.
Yeah.
As I'm teaching people how to run a vehicle, we're trying to do this, then this, then this, then that. And I think that there's a magic that happens when we're able to put all of our focus into one element at a time and separate things out. So that was really useful. Another thing was collecting points. And how can we simplify the experience? How can we have the most economy of effort or motion, right? How can we do the least and get the biggest impact? Yeah. And so those elements become really important in life as well as in the car.
Yeah, I think the knowledge flows both directions. what you improve on in your personal life will show up in your driving, and what you improve in your driving will show up in your personal life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, gosh, man, we need to talk more about this. There does have to be a limit to this show. So I'm going to pause for a second. We're going to do something fun at the end, but I want to make sure that people know if they want to go to one of your schools, they want to learn from you, they want to follow you, what is the ideal place that you want them to go to do that?
Yeah, thank you. Our race schools are called Tactical Dynamics. We have car, we have motorcycle, and we have weapons training. All of it has a lot to do with the mindset,
Okay.
and then, of course, the practical skills as well. We work with all levels of vehicles, so you can bring your own. We have rentals. We can do manufacturer trainings like we mentioned as well. You can reach us at elitetrainingschools.com. And you can also text me at 801-529-7814 if you'd like more information.
Okay, fantastic. So what I like to do at the end of every interview, Jonathan, is I ask a pit stop question, and it's designed to get us to pause and think about safety. And then I ask a bunch of hot lap questions that are designed to be just kind of quick questions that I ask you, that we have a little fun and find out what your favorites and not favorites are, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
All right, so here is the pit stop question. What is the most expensive lesson that you have learned? And the idea behind this is something happened that was bad, you didn't like the outcome, and if everyone listening to this can learn from your expensive lesson, then maybe it won't be theirs.
I think it's probably something along the lines of trust but verify, and be very cautious about who you're engaged with. We mentioned how important safety is. So if somebody is willing to take chances with your safety, that of course sucks. I have been on track with students who wouldn't follow instruction, and while I was in the passenger seat, they put us into the wall. That created, a back injury that lasted years.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't even know how you put price on pain and health.
No, that's incalculable. It reminds me of something I learned from Ross Bentley, who I did interview earlier in this series, where he said that most instructors know that something is going to go wrong before it happens.
Absolutely.
And if you start to feel that, you get off the track and have a conversation. I've always thought of that because that's a really expensive mistake I don't want to experience.
Well, and the fact of the matter is, it's terribly safe to race cars, right? To come out to a track day, to do a school, to have private coaching, we virtually never have incidents. And at Utah Motorsports campus in particular, it's one of the safest tracks in North America.
Yeah.
So it's actually really hard to get hurt. And cars are so safe, especially street cars. So many safety precautions, so many, we call them nannies, that are protecting you while you're playing with the limits. So I don't want to paint the wrong picture, because it's safer than driving the freeways, right? There's just so many less incidences.
Yeah, that's such a great lesson. Okay, so here are the hot lap questions. Favorite car you've driven on track?
I would say, like, if I had a top 10 list, 4 of them are Ferraris.
Wow. Okay.
Lamborghini has one on my list. McLaren's got one on my list. KTM Crossbow.
Oh, I haven't driven that, but I've seen that, and I've been really intrigued by that one.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I love the Radicals because they're analog and so raw. Yeah, I could probably keep going.
All right. Well, that's a good list. Bucket list car you haven't driven on the track yet.
So my buddy's uncle is the guy who has the Koenigsegg that got the land speed record. And, I've spent time with those guys and been at their private racetrack side house and everything. He's got a Pagani that I haven't driven on the track.
Wow. That would be
He's
amazing.
got a Koenigsegg I haven't been in. So yeah, some of those ethereal.
All right. So if he's
hypercars.
listening to this, just kind of a little nudge, little wink, wink, nudge there.
The whole family's amazing.
Most proud track driving accomplishment.
Ooh, it's funny. I've had a couple of saves where no one was around, nobody saw it. Something happened and I responded perfectly in the moment at triple digits and pulled it together. And I think if I had been consciously thinking about it, I couldn't have done it. But the
Yeah.
subconscious and the application of all of these concepts we've been discussing came together in one pure moment. And I knew, with no one around, that I had just done something very special.
Oh,
Right.
I
And
love that
that
answer.
felt so good.
That's such a good answer. And it's just another endorsement of that concept of we respond to situations, stressful situations, based on our training, based on the conditioning that we've developed.
Probably a backpack full of luck, too.
Favorite track that you've driven?
Wow, that's a great question. I think at the end of the day, I have to say Utah. I know it so intimately. I've had so many championships here, so many amazing life experiences. Like, I have to say that when I look back, I'm 45, and so many of of like my favorite moments ever have been there. And it's because of the people I was with. It was because of the different experiences I got to have. I just want to, thank the Miller family again for putting that together.
Yeah. It's the ultimate man cave. Larry H. Miller put together something truly, truly special there.
Well, and the whole family did too. They
Yeah.
were all a part of it. And I'm just eternally grateful.
Best piece of driving advice you've received from someone else?
Okay. So this is interesting. It's not exactly an answer to your question directly, but it's what comes up because it came up 4 different ways. Being in the car with someone who really knows what they're doing, who has a total command for the feel and just the finesse of vehicle manipulation. Every time that's happened, whether it was with Mr. Daytona, motorcycle racer, or Randy Probst, or we had Mario Andretti as a guest instructor for one of our events. Every time I'm with someone at that level, just experiencing them be one with the vehicle and to address everything in the moment as it comes up. And it's magic. It almost defies understanding. That's where I've learned the most.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the times where I've been able to get a hot lap with somebody who is just a professional. Right. And it becomes aspirational.
Oh, absolutely.
You go, okay, I've still got a long way to go here. Last question is, what's one thing that you want every amateur track driver to do?
Oh, have an open mind. That's probably the biggest thing. I think that this world is special. I think that one of the greatest things on earth is firsts. So like the first time you experience something, the first time that you do something new, or, you get to have an experience, I think those are really what it's all about. And so I would say go into it with your eyes wide open, appreciating, be a connoisseur of the experience, appreciate the smells, the speed, the feelings, the people, the machines. It's just a wealth of firsts. And if you go in with that attitude, you're going to get so much from the experience.
I think you summed up why I want to be an instructor, and maybe you agree with it too, is we get to be there for those firsts. We get to experience that.
Absolutely.
And that's the special moment. Right?
Yeah. Watching someone's passion ignite is magical. And it's why I will do this until I can't.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jonathan, for your enthusiasm about this, for your wisdom and your insight, and especially that perspective where we're blending the human psychology of things with it. This has been a fantastic interview, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this with us.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you for bringing the messages to the new people. And I invite you all to come join us. We're having a great time.
Yeah. And what was the website again that they should
EliteTrainingschools.com.
Okay. EliteTrainingschools.com. Thank you so much, Jonathan Law. And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you have someone that you think I should interview, a track I should go to, you can send that to show@drivesport.co. Thanks for listening. Eyes up and stay fluid.
You've been listening to DriveSport, the amateur track driver podcast, hosted by DMC and produced by DriveSport LLC. Research and assistant production by Victoria Bidez. Music is by Illigot via Premium Beat Licensing. If you have a question, guest suggestion, or a track DMC should visit, please send it to show@drivesport.co. Please subscribe to DriveSport on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like to get your podcasts. And follow us on social media at DriveSport Co. We'll see you in the next episode.
Track days are fun, but also unpredictable. That's part of the thrill. When the unexpected and expensive lesson happens, you'll be glad your car is protected by OpenTrack Insurance, found at drivesport.co/insurance. OpenTrack offers full vehicle coverage and liability insurance, something you just don't find with most track day policies. And if you're a true track rat like me, they even offer annual coverage, so you're protected at every event throughout the year. It's a great deal. Get a quote today at drivesport.co/insurance. You can drive safer, be more confident, and have more fun knowing your car is protected by OpenTrack. Visit drivesport.co/insurance.